Hello and welcome to this BioProcess International Ask the Expert webcast. I'm your host, Leah Rosen, the online editor for BioProcess International. Before we get started, just a couple of notes. This webcast is being recorded and will be made available for replay in the multimedia section of our website. We've muted our audio lines, but we welcome you to type in your questions for our speaker in the chat window on your screen. After the presentation, we will begin the question and answer portion, and I will ask our speaker your questions from the chat window. Your questions in the chat window will only be visible to myself and our speaker. So thank you again for joining us today. It is now my pleasure to introduce Jorian from Patheon.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Today I'm going to be talking about the top 5 considerations when looking to outsource to a biomanufacturing partner. Before I begin, just a quick introduction about myself. My name is Paul Jajorian. I'm currently the Global Director of Technology Transfer at Patheon within their Biologics division. A little bit about my background. In my current role, I support the global integration of technology transfer across our 4 biologics manufacturing sites. So this is focused on how we're sending not only processes from our development labs into operations, but also how we bring in customers' programs, whether that be into development or into operations. From a technical perspective, my background is primarily within purification development. Prior to my current role, I managed a purification development team at our St. Louis facility, and prior to joining Patheon, I worked for Bristol Myers Squibb. With that said, let's get started. So, outsourcing specifically to CDMO for bulk drug substance and drug product manufacturing is a really big decision, especially for an emerging and mid-sized biopharma company. This may be, in fact, the largest decision that they make in a given year, or even in sort of the overall life cycle of the company. So we compile this really large decision with the fact that folks are increasing the level of outsourcing. This is true not only for small biopharma biotech companies, but also the larger companies as well. We're seeing this increase of almost 20% between 2015 and 2020. Apologies. So with that said, this webinar is designed to really go through what are sort of the critical things that a company should be considering when making the decision between really a multitude of different options when it comes to outsourcing their drug substance and drug product manufacturing. So I should say when considering this top 5 list, I did leave out 2 very obvious ones, those being the consideration of time and the consideration of cost. Those are obviously sort of make or break decisions when it comes to selecting outsourcing partners. So I've left those out the list. With that said, without further ado, let's start. So number 1 consideration, quality. This may seem obvious, but it really is all about quality. You want to be thinking about the quality systems and the ability to deliver quality products when you're making your CDMO outsourcing decision first and foremost. With that said, quality can mean different things to different people depending on who you're talking to. So with that said, remember that the quality systems within the CDMO that you're looking to outsource to may not be identical to those that you have within your company. It's important that you understand those differences up front and not when you're in the middle of making a critical decision, let's say in the middle of a manufacturing batch. So with that in mind, I tried to highlight 3 things that would be important to discuss and think about when making these decisions or considerations around quality. The first is understand the deviation process within your outsourcing partner. So how do they address deviations? How do they categorize deviations? And when will they raise deviations? And another good question to ask would be, are they doing this in a phase-appropriate manner? So if they're making both phase 1 products and phase 3 products and commercial products, how are they managing deviations, et cetera, for those different types of programs? Also, the quality agreement. The quality agreement always takes longer than everyone thinks it will, and make sure that you're building that time into your overall timelines for your program. And make sure that you're starting to have those conversations as early as possible with your outsourcing partner. Finally, there's a lot of documents that are required to make a drug substance or drug product batch happen. Make sure that you are having discussions around which of those documents you as a client are going to be responsible for reviewing and which you may not have access to. The policies around document approval and document review can vary pretty dramatically from CDMO to CDMO. So moving on to number 2, this is probably the area that I have the most familiarity with. This is technical expertise. Does the CDMO's technical expertise match what you're looking for? And there's a lot of considerations here depending on where your molecule is at in its life cycle and what internal capabilities you have. Are you looking to outsource early phase development? You're a smaller company that only has a DNA sequence or an amino acid sequence that you're looking to have someone produce the product for you. So that's going to be really someone that's really focused on phase 1 development, early development, or are you further along in the process and looking for someone who can do process characterization studies, get your molecule launched? Does the CDMO have that technical expertise? Another big one is we're seeing a resurgence in the demand for recombinant proteins. So does the CDMO have expertise working with recombinant proteins, maybe fusion proteins and things like that, or is there experience primarily in MABs, and how does that match up with what your product is? Another big topic, single-use technology. We're seeing an increased interest in folks looking for really primarily single-use technology capabilities. Does that match really your goals, or are you looking to be in a more stainless steel format? That's going to help limit the number of CDMOs that can offer you what you're looking for. Perfusion processing. This is not trivial to do. More molecules are starting to be produced in perfusion. It's somewhat seeing a resurgence in the industry, as it were. And there's only a limited amount of capability to do that type of work, and you should make sure that the partner is able to conduct that for you. Also, unique downstream technologies. Are they able to meet your needs if you have specific needs for your molecule? And finally, multiplexing. This is a concept of taking multiple, whether it be 2,000-liter or 1,000-liter single-use bioreactors and pulling them together into a single downstream. This is a way to really flex capacity relative to the demand of your molecule. Is this something that the company is familiar with? And then, really with any of these, the number of years of experience that the CDMO has using these various technologies can be very telling in terms of their expertise. Number 3 on the list, flexibility. This is actually my favorite, and I think is something that maybe should be considered a little more when looking for a partner. And flexibility can mean a whole lot of different things depending on how you look at it. So the first is flexibility to meet an uncertain forecast. It's very, very difficult to predict exactly how much product is going to be required in the long term for your specific assets. So be thinking about that when selecting a partner. You definitely don't want to be over manufacturing, put the product into a 10 or 20K bioreactor and end up with way more product than you need. That's obviously going to cause waste. But certainly on the other end, and probably far more detrimental, is if you're not able to meet demand and you have patients that go without life-saving therapy that they're working for. So understanding how a CDMO can either flex up or flex down its capacity based on your needs is really critical. Flexibility with early and late phase capability. So, think about the long-term goals of the asset. Are you only looking to get phase 1 material and then maybe sell off the asset, or are you looking to take the molecule all the way from development to commercialization? And can the partner that you're working with support that? tech transfers are expensive, especially when going from company to company. It's hard to get really two CDMOs motivated to tech transfer a process from one to another, and that can ultimately delay your program, which has obviously substantial costs associated with it. And then finally, flexibility to provide the whole solution. So someone used an analogy recently about this is, think about if you're building a house. Do you hire a general contractor to manage everything for you, who has all the capabilities within maybe within his company and can do the plumbing and the electrical, etc.? Or do you go to multiple specialized vendors and really look to manage that yourself? And there's implications both from cost and time about making that decision, but also quality as well. So you may need specialized vendors for specific activities. Then again, you may be looking for a partner that can offer that entire solution for you and help streamline your overall project. Number 4, it may seem obvious, but it's a manufacturing track record. You want a company that can deliver and has proven that it's delivered in the past. So you'll note I have sort of this metrics ball in the middle. I think it's important that when you think about success, that you think about folks that actually are tracking their success and can provide concrete numbers showing that they've been successful in the past, whether that be the number of different types of molecules that they've worked on, different technologies that they've worked on, success rate in terms of KPIs, things like contamination rate being the obvious one, but on-time delivery of batches. Are they consistently getting batches out the door on time? Are they delivering right first time? How does a company think about measuring that, and how can they share that with you? Another one, years of experience. How experienced is the staff that you're working with? And finally, batches per year. So what's the run rate look like at your potential partner? How much capacity do they have left for you? Or how much experience do they have running at a high run rate? So I'm sure folks on the line can think of other examples, but it's really important to be asking the right questions and making sure that the CDMO that you choose to work with is able to provide those concrete examples of their capability to deliver. And finally, number 5, trust. There's a concept that an individual brought up in a meeting, maybe it was 2 or 3 months ago. He called it a technical handshake. So I've stolen this term here. I think it's a great way of phrasing it. But have you had the technical handshake with your potential partner? Do you feel that you're aligned in terms of your understanding of the challenges with your programs and the potential solutions? This can drive all the way down to company culture. You want to be working with someone that is culturally aligned with you in terms of the way that they approach a program, or will flex with you or not flex with you, and really having that similar approach. Great way to do this. One-to-one meetings between SMEs can give you a lot of insight into what and how the cultures can play together. Another obvious one is into the industry reputation. Ask your colleagues within your network about the CMO you're thinking of working with. This is a very small industry, as we all know, and it's good to get that real honest feedback from a trusted colleague. And finally, site visits. That's really an obvious way to understand this, but it's so critical. Those face-to-face meetings really help provide a lot of insight into this area in terms of the ability to work with a potential partner. So I'd like to thank everyone for their time today in going through these top considerations when outsourcing to a CDMO. There are many considerations. Obviously, we talked initially about cost and time, but the ones I would really think to focus in on when you make your decisions are quality, technical expertise, flexibility, manufacturing track record, and of course trust. So thanks again. I'll be happy to entertain any questions that you have. either now, or you can feel free to contact me at my email address on the screen. Thanks again.
So thanks, Paul. So the first question is, after signing up with CDMO, what can a client do to help ensure success?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the one thing that we found is, first of all, after signing up, it's really critical to have that face-to-face meeting. Anytime, for whatever reason, we've decided to forego that face-to-face meeting, it ends up wasting a whole lot more time and a whole lot more cost than the flights out to the facility. Getting the project teams aligned and allowing the SMEs to meet face-to-face up front is really critical. It comes back to that concept of the technical handshake, but it's a lot easier to send off an email or something like that to someone that you've interfaced with on a more sort of direct level earlier in the program.
And in your experience, what is the most common cause of issues or failures during a project with a CDMO?
Yeah, that's another good question. It comes back to the and this is found to be universally true. A lot of the errors or issues with a program manifest themselves very early. It's this concept of, if you're sort of think about launching a rocket to the moon. If you're half a millimeter or 1 centimeter off when you launch the rocket, you can be really far off by the time you want to reach your destination. And it's similar with these programs. I think getting the teams aligned and getting clear definitions around things like expectations around the way data is presented, expectations around document review, the example I gave in the talk, expectations around the way in which deviations are managed, expectations around timeline and delivery and review cycles. Getting all of that locked down earlier in the program, roles and responsibilities obviously being another one in terms of approval, et cetera, as early as possible in the program can really help the overall success of the program and help keep the team aligned. That's definitely a big one. I think quality program management is obviously another one where you have the program managers on both sides, steering the ship, as it were, so everyone is paddling in the same direction.
And how critical is it that customers send a person in the plant to the CDMO, and when should they do this?
That's a good question. So, I think we've seen both approaches. There's actually multiple times that a person in plant could be sent, whether that be to support the development, initial development of the program. They may be joining a scientist within the development labs, or they may be supporting on the manufacturing floor. So certainly we find that the sort of development interaction with a person in plant can be very helpful. Definitely, especially if the customers develop the process, I think it's getting all of that information about the process that is not easily translatable in a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation early on in the program is really critical. The other thing we found is actually sending folks from the receiving site or the CDMO to the innovator to see the process run in their labs or pilot plant is extremely helpful and can save a whole lot of time as the program progresses. As far as having a person in plant support the operations portion of it, I think there's pros and cons. I think, is it critical to the success of the program? Not always. I think it is good, though, to have a person there to answer questions, especially if it's the first time the program's scaled up. The actual expert from the innovator company can really provide some really good and timely insight as the batch is being executed. I think On the flip side, you don't want to have too many individuals from the innovator company either on the manufacturing floor, or there on site, as it can at times become a distraction. I think there's a nice balance though there, where having the innovator company there on site to provide that technical guidance as the program is running can add quite a bit of value.
Okay. Thank you very much, Paul, and thank you to our audience for joining us. The recorded version of this webcast will be available for on-demand viewing on our website, and as a registered attendee, you'll receive a follow-up email providing you with a direct link. We look forward to having you join us at our future BioProcess International Ask the Expert webcasts. We have a full lineup covering many aspects of bioprocess scheduled for the duration of the year. Look for these announcements in your inbox. Thank you. Bye.